The woman who once called me worthless came to my office years later, begging for a job. She didn't recognize me at first, the same woman who threw me out for being black. I smiled and said, "Funny, isn't it? You tried to steal my home, and now you're standing in mine." But this story didn't start with revenge. It started with betrayal. Before I tell you what happened after that night, make sure you subscribe, share, and keep listening, because this story, this one changed my life forever. I still remember the day my son brought her home. Her name was Claire, a pretty woman with soft hands, a polite laugh, and eyes that never truly met mine. She was white, and that never bothered me. I had raised my son to love whoever made his heart kind. But the way she looked at me that first afternoon, like she had walked into a house that didn't belong to her yet, something deep inside me whispered, "Be careful, Evelyn." My husband had passed a few years before. God rest his soul. He was a strong man, proud, wise, and before he died, he left a will that protected me. He wrote that the house, the estate, and the savings could only be transferred to our son through me. It's not about money, he told me. It's about making sure you're never left at the mercy of anyone. I didn't understand the weight of those words until Claire came along. At first she was sugar, always smiling, always calling me Mama Evelyn, always pretending to care. But soon little drops of venom began to show. The way she'd sigh when I'd cook traditional food, the way she'd wipe her hands after hugging me, the way she'd make jokes about my accent when she thought I couldn't hear. My son would laugh thinking it was harmless, but a mother knows when love turns into mockery. One day she said something I'll never forget. "You know, Evelyn, it's so progressive of your son to have married outside his background." She said it sweetly with that sharp smile. I looked at her and said, "My son married love. That's all that matters." But she didn't want love. She wanted legacy, and she saw me as the wall standing in her way. Slowly, she began turning my son against me. It started small, whispers about how I criticized her, lies about things I never said. Then bigger, claiming I didn't want their marriage to succeed. I could see him changing, my own flesh and blood, his voice colder, his eyes avoiding mine. I prayed it was just stress, but prayers can't cure poison once it's already spread. The breaking point came on a rainy night. I was sitting in the living room, knitting by the fire, when I heard shouting from upstairs. Claire stormed down the steps, holding papers, my husband's will. "So this is why he made you executor," she yelled. "You've been controlling everything, haven't you?" I tried to explain, but she wasn't listening. "You old witch," she spat. "This isn't your house anymore. You're just a guest here." My son didn't say a word, not one word. He just stood there staring at the floor while his wife, the woman I had opened my home to, called me a parasite. I still remember the sound of my suitcase wheels on the floor as I packed that night. My son helped me carry it to the door. And when I turned to look at him, tears blurring my eyes, I whispered, "When you lose what you think you own, you'll remember who taught you to build." Then the door closed behind me. The rain didn't stop that night, neither did the ache in my chest. The small house I moved into was nothing compared to the one I left behind. The walls were cracked, the windows thin, the roof groaned when the wind blew. But it was mine. I slept on the floor for weeks, curled under my husband's old blanket, whispering prayers into the dark. The pain didn't go away. But pain, if you let it, can turn into purpose. One morning I woke up with swollen eyes and swollen pride. I said to myself, Evelyn, you've built before, you'll build again. I walked to the community centre and asked if they knew any widows or older women looking for work. Within days, 5 women joined me in that little house. They were like me, forgotten, cast aside, waiting for something to believe in again. Together we began sewing, crafting, creating small handmade items to sell at the local market. We called it Golden Hands. At first we made barely enough to buy food, but we laughed again. We sang while working. The house that once echoed with loneliness now hummed with the rhythm of rebirth. I taught them how to manage money, how to speak to buyers, how to price their worth with dignity. Soon we caught the attention of a local journalist who wrote an article titled "The Grandmothers Who Refused to Give Up." Orders poured in from everywhere. For the first time in years, I felt my husband's spirit around me, not in the house I'd lost, but in the home I was building. I used to believe that wealth was in the walls of a house, but wealth, true wealth, is in the hands that keep working even after being broken. 5 years passed like a sunrise that never stopped rising. Our brand grew. We started exporting crafts, partnering with stores and helping younger women learn from us. I built an office, a modest one, but it carried my name on the door. Evelyn and Company. Sometimes when I sat by my office window, I'd think of my son. I never hated him. I pitied him, because I knew that no one who forgets where they come from ever truly finds where they're going. It was a Friday morning when the secretary came in and said, "Ma'am, there's a woman here asking for work. She looks desperate," I told her to send her in. I was reviewing a proposal when I heard the voice, soft, trembling, broken. "Excuse me, are you hiring?" When I looked up, my heart didn't race. It slowed. Claire. Her once perfect hair was unkempt, her hands rough, her eyes hollow. She didn't recognise me at first. Maybe because of the gold nameplate behind me. Maybe because she never imagined she'd ever look up at me again. "I'm sorry," she said. "I used to own a business, but things went bad. My husband left me. The investors pulled out. I just need something, anything." I stood slowly. My legs shook, not from anger, from the weight of years collapsing into one moment. I walked around the desk, stood before her and said softly, "Do you remember what you told me once? That this house wasn't for black and worthless old people like me?" I smiled and said, "Funny, isn't it? You tried to steal my home, and now you're standing in mine." Her lips parted, eyes wide. Recognition hit her like thunder. She stuttered, "Evelyn, I raised a hand gently. "Don't explain. Life already did." There was silence, the kind that carries lessons heavier than words. Then I added, "You tried to take my home for property, but I built something you can't take. Respect." She dropped her eyes, tears spilling onto the floor. I could have humiliated her, sent her away, but I didn't. I simply said, "We're not hiring today, but there's a food drive around the corner. Tell them I sent you." As she walked away, I felt no victory, only peace, because revenge hardens you, but forgiveness frees you. Months later, I received a letter. It was from my son. He had heard about what happened and wanted to meet. We sat across from each other in a small cafe. No mansion, no property papers, no power left between us. Just a mother and a boy who'd forgotten how to be one. He cried, begged for forgiveness. I didn't need to say much. I held his hand and whispered, "I forgive you, but you must live with your choices." I built again without you, not out of spite, but out of survival. He nodded, ashamed, and when he left that day, I knew the cycle was complete. 20 years later, Evelyn and Company became a national brand employing thousands of women. The same community that once pitied me now called me Mother Evelyn, the woman who turned pain into purpose. People often ask me if I ever took my son back or if I helped Claire again. The truth, I helped them both, but never with money, with wisdom. When you give someone money, they might survive the day. But when you give them understanding, they might never fall the same way again. One evening, as I sat watching the sunset from my office balcony, a young girl asked me, "Mama Evelyn, what's your secret to success?" I smiled and said, "Forgive, but don't forget." Because forgetting means you learn nothing, and forgiveness means you've learned enough. The world may measure success in numbers and names, but I measure mine in peace, in the laughter of the women who once had none, in the homes that now echo with life again. Claire lost her wealth, my son lost his pride, but I found myself. And that, my dear, is how karma works, quietly, precisely, with the grace of time.